All right, now we can get started. So, RivalCon, are you ready for panel 2? All right, so our last panel was voice actors, Declan. So, you can use different voices throughout this interview in order to kind of give them the full panel experience.
I'm sure my acting range will be bursting out here.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. All right, so for our musicians panel today, Declan Gillgallon. Let me start that one over. Declan Gillgallon is a UK-based composer whose work appears in the motion picture soundtrack Broken Eden and in the upcoming film I Pull the Strings. You've also heard his music on the Scyther podcast dramas The X-Men and the Batman The Long Halloween. And his first solo album of music, Beyond Consciousness, is due to be released this August. So, Declan, welcome to RivalCon.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's get this conversation started. So, for today's panel, we wanted to go a little bit behind the scenes of what you do as a composer. What your day in the life of a music composer looks like, since you've worked on different projects and things. But as on Tap Style, we like to go behind the scenes a little bit too and get to know you, as an artist. So, when you were a kid, whose music did you most enjoy listening to?
Well, I was a bit of a kind of, technically odd child in the sense that I didn't really listen to the radio much at all. It was on in the house often, suburban British home with generic family, but I got most of my musical, most of the music I listened to as a kid was from films, TV, and the odd video games. So people like John Williams with the original Star Wars films, James Horner, and Thomas Newman. I was talking to one of my friends about it the other day, and I think what was the first film I noticed music in? I think it was Finding Nemo. Quite an odd one.
Nice. So, how much has that, influenced how you go about your music compositions when you're given scripts for, doing the movies that you've done? Just the stuff that you listened to as a kid. How does that kind of play into what you do, in your current job? I mean, you've scored, a number of different things at this point. How is your musical preference kind of influenced how your compositions work out?
Well, it's the main thing that's got me into doing what I'm doing. It's the thing that's keeping me at it, really. So the music I enjoy, different kind of shapes and techniques, or similar sounding things. It's a lot of. If I was to mention the artists that influenced me when I was younger, you'd be able to see their influence in my music straight away, such as Thomas Newman's use of piano themes. You'll notice that a lot in my music. James Horner's use of single horn like motifs. That's again quite common in what I do. It's kind of all the stuff I've heard as a child and growing up, and I've listened to the radio. I'm not that sheltered, I don't think, but there's like massive influences like Ennio Morricone, who influences every single piece of Western music I have to write. So it's kind of the main thing for me.
So of all the different projects you've worked on today, I mean, which one has been the most fun for you?
Hard to pick one really, but I'd have to say the audio drama stuff with Carl's kind of. In the industry, a lot of directors like to tempt their projects with temp music, which can either be a gift or kind of a massive hindrance, because you can end up with directors who fall in love with the temp score and you end up asking to copy untitled piece from untitled composer, and it's very very difficult. But Carl just doesn't use temp music, and we discuss little ideas, and I go off and do whatever comes to my mind, and if he doesn't like it, I get sent it back and has to do it again. So usual stuff. So stuff like that. So on the X-Men stuff, I've got to kind of write a lot of themes. I think there's about 12 in season 1. I'm sure there's going to be at least 17 in season 2, but we're only about 9 episodes in, I believe. I've got the script for the 10th one, and I'm enjoying it. I haven't finished reading it yet. Sorry, Carl. Don't find me, please.
Right.
We won't tell him.
Yes. Hi, Carl. Sorry.
He won't hear this until after I talk to him next, so it'll all be good by then. It's fine.
Yeah, so stuff on Long Halloween as well. I got to do. I'm a massive fan of Batman stuff, so it's kind of like, I get to write my own Batman theme. But then again, a lot of the unique film stuff, like Broken Eden with Chris Chucky, I'm working on his next film at the minute, and I might be working on the one after that, but I haven't asked him yet. So, and again, I pull the strings. I had to write a ballet suite for, so every project has its own individual interest that keeps me enjoying it.
Nice. So, speaking about Carl and some of the different directors you've worked with so far, what's the strangest request that you've ever received from a director as far as your music?
Right. I should preface this. There's a running joke in the industry where trombones are the loudest thing that's ever existed ever. So, and also there's the common more cowbell. There was a track which I had to write where it was this really bizarre like jazz source music. So the score, which is used to evoke emotion, and the source music, which is music that's played within the film. There's a scene in a bar, and there's like a group of jazz musicians in the corner, and it was just a quick dialogue scene. I had to write this little jazz piece. So it was like a muted trombone, piano, drum kit. And I kept getting requests to add more trombone and add more cowbell, which is a very bizarre one. It's like, more cowbell. All right, any louder? More cowbell. More trombone. Like, oh, okay. Well, that's a fun one.
That is fantastic, actually. I think that, wow. You were literally asked to give more cowbell in your music.
More cowbell. Never enough cowbell.
Oh my. All right, so the next question, I think we're gonna take some questions from the audience in a minute too, but so a good chunk of RCM's community are college students, younger adults. Think about your experiences thus far, as a young composer, and knowing what you know now. You've been going at this for a couple of years now. What's one piece of advice you would give to somebody who's just starting off, thinking about getting into composing or thinking about, getting into soundscapes professionally? What's something that you would recommend, that they try, or a piece of advice that you would give for them?
The best piece of advice I've ever, it's not something I've come up with myself, but it's from the maestro Ennio Morricone, who's a genius composer, working on The Good and the Bad and the Ugly, and so many great Sergio Leone films, Few Dollars, Fistful of Dollars, Few Dollars More. He said in an interview once, the best way to go about writing music for film is first to study the great composers and the great musicians of the past and your own time, learning their techniques, knowing how they do what they do. And then after you've studied their works and are able to replicate their works to an almost exact level, then add that into your own unique music and blend the different techniques together to create your own voice. And that's the best thing I've ever heard musically. There's a thing in the industry these days where everyone likes to copy this one guy whose name I won't say, but I'm sure everyone knows who he is. But yeah, everyone likes to copy him, and it's kind of, it takes the creativity out of the industry. And if you look these days with the amount of remakes that are happening, like Alfred Hitchcock's The Bird is getting a remake by Universal, which just Yeah, I don't know why, but you want to add creativity to the industry because creativity gets noticed. The creative director at the minute is Nicholas Winding Refn. The amount of things that have been said about the Neon Demon, it's so creative, but that's what gets noticed. I won't notice the remake of. Hang on, what's another remake coming out soon? Oh, Legend of Tarzan. It's like the 20th Tarzan film or something. I won't notice that because it's nothing new. So create your own voice and do something different. I'm not sure how to talk about in the sound design world, but then again, sound design is very difficult to be creative in.
Very cool. All right, so I have some questions for you from the audience. It's in Varyar's handwriting, so I apologize. It's going to take a minute for me to decipher this.
My handwriting is awful as well.
So the first question, when you're getting your notes or direction from producers or directors, what sort of form does it take? Is there a specific way that you deal with them? I mean, do you just sit down in meetings, or do they just hand you off notes as to what they want you to do?
It's very dependent on the director. So with Carl, it's as simple as a few emails. I get what I need to work on. I don't have any specific notes where music should go, so I work that myself. With someone like Chris, we use cue sheets, which beforehand we have a Skype session where we just play the film through a few times and we say, we want music there, we think music should go there, I should go away there, and let the sound design people take over. And then we have a sheet with different time codes on that say, the first cue is this, it lasts for, 30, 40 seconds, do that. So I have all these posted to a wall next to me to remind me to do my job properly and stop messing around with, sampled kazoos, because I'm still trying to find a way of fitting a kazoo into a track. Still haven't yet, but kind of a running dare with one of the other composer friends. We try and fit a weird instrument into whichever score we're working on at the minute, and we tell each other which instrument to do. So last time mine was a whale drum. Look forward to the next episode of X-Men. There'll be a whale drum somewhere.
Yes.
It sounds so weird, but let's just hope there's a scene I can fit it in. Well, anyway, there's the cue sheets, and then we have constant Skype meetings, which are the most nerve-wracking things ever. It's kind of, I have to present the themes. It's like, it's pretty much like the scene in The Lion King where Simba's held up and against the cliff. If you think Simba's being held up, that's me holding up my themes to the director, and at any point they can just strike a lightning down on me. I have to start again. It's kind of, themes are very difficult to get approved, but once you get them approved, nice one. But with Vic on I Pull the Strings, I was co-writing with another guy, but we didn't know what each other were doing, what the other person was doing, so it's kind of, I took some of the main scenes, when it gets released, I wrote the music for the opening 3 scenes in the middle and then the entire climax. And then he wrote the in-between scenes, but it's kind of communicating different styles across when co-writing. So I sometimes co-write with a guy called Jason, who I collaborate with a lot, but we haven't released any of our stuff yet, so it's kind of trying to find a compilation thing to release. But when we write, it's just both of us sat in the room, one of us plays one instrument, one of us plays the other, so I'll be dabbling at the piano, or we might Skype and he's playing guitar because he's a great guitar player. I'm a terrible guitar player. So something like that, really. I rambled a lot there.
You're all right. So we had another question from the audience. So on average, how long does it take to do each project from start to completion?
again, that's kind of asking how long's a piece of string. So with the audio dramas, it's I can be writing up to 40 minutes of music in a week. That's because I've got a lot of pre-written themes, a lot of pre-written material that I do about 2 months of prep before the first series of each audio drama. So I wrote the theme for the Long Halloween in about. We started in 2015, I think, January or something. But with films, if it's full length, like 5 or 6 weeks maybe. If it's a short film, maybe 2-3 weeks. But it depends when I get brought on. If I'm brought on in pre-production, that's brilliant. I've got about 3 or 4 months to do whatever I want. I can, do anything. I can sleep. But if I'm brought on right at the end of pre-production, if I'm brought on about a week before the dub, I don't sleep much. So,
All right. Next question from the audience: how many instruments can you play?
I play piano, a bit of guitar, but mediocre. I can play enough to get it. I can play enough guitar to get it through the scores, and I'm currently learning violin, but I've currently broke my E string, so I need to restring it. But yeah, I'm more kind of linked with like orchestration techniques, which is kind of my thing really. So sitting down at the piano, getting this little thing called a pencil and paper. I don't think a lot of modern people have heard of that, but just writing out things and trying to make sure it works properly, and then I can get it into the computer and mess around with it and add some lovely synthesizer elements and Brahms from Mr. Zimmer.
That kind of goes into what the next question was, which is, do you prefer the ease of the digital tools or the sound of live music?
I've always preferred live, but with the budget of the projects I get, it's very rare that I get live elements in. So there's a couple scenes on X-Men where I had a friend of mine who's a vocalist. He sang a few bits for me. There's a bit of live piano for when I was at a friend's studio. It's got a beautiful piano that I can record all day. Then on X-Men, I played a bit of guitar at the end, which is probably why it's the most out of time thing you've probably ever heard. Probably so far out of time that it's in time somehow.
All right. All right. Killer is saying that I have to ask this one. What soundtrack? Excuse me. Going back to our conversation from earlier, what soundtrack do you think needs more cowbell?
Oh God. More cowbell. Ooh. Let's think. I'd love to hear a load of cowbell in Star Wars. A massive cowbell. That'd be pretty awesome. Then again, I'm a big fan of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, so when they're doing the Ecstasy of Gold scene, I'd love a bit of cowbell. Can't have enough.
This is the way that the world truly ends, is putting more cowbell in all of the soundtracks to every movie ever.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine the Inception trailer where instead of a Brahm, it's just a cowbell. Do I have a cowbell lying around? I hope to God I do.
I love how you're just looking around for a cowbell that you can.
I'm looking around for a cowbell, and all I can see is bongo drums and accordion and a harmonica. I don't even play any of them. This is what things are like for me. I have random bits of instruments lying around, but I can't play them, so they're kind of just there for show until someone plays them for me. And I'm just sat there going, thank you. Teach me, please.
All right, we had one more question from chat. Well, you're here. You're sending me stuff via message, so you're chat now. So, the question is, how do you start creating a score, both through inspiration and through technical execution?
Well, when I get hired, the first thing I do is panic, forget how to do my job.
Standard.
More. Yeah, this is standard. Panic more, sit at the piano, end up playing other people's themes for about 10 minutes. Then when I stop playing Star Wars for some reason, I come up with something accidentally, then I don't write it down, and I somehow remember it the next morning. So I always write things at the piano first. I write a set of themes and just little short 30-second things, and then I add them all into a suite. So The Long Halloween has a suite, which not on the album, but yeah. The X-Men ones have a suite as well, but I think season 2 has got a 12 or 13-minute suite. But I don't think Carl has heard it yet. The project I'm working on with Carl, it's in pre-production with Carl at the minute. I wrote a 14-minute suite for last year, but I think I'm going to extend that out a bit. So send those suites off to the director, and they go through and say, that thing from 30 seconds in to 2 minutes in, I like that, keep that. The other 20 minutes, nah, don't keep it. It's something like that. So then I do the cue sheet stuff, or if I'm working with Carl, I just kind of do it by heart and hope I get it right. Then from there, I think I'm always, when I first get the full cut of whatever, I always place the themes in first and then write the in-between material. So in the X-Men seasons, if there's a scene with Wolverine, I'll make sure that his theme is present there first, and I'm not just writing brand new randomized material for that element. I like to have a lot of thematic elements in music, and then it goes through different edits, and we throw it back and forth a bit, and I find out that the film's been, well, a lot of the time I find out the film's been recut, and the bit that's in the finale is now the first scene, and that scene that I worked really, really hard on is completely gone. The end title's completely changed, and they've changed the ending. And yeah, then
Gotta
you just
rework it a little bit.
Yeah, well, I've had a film that's the edit is almost equivalent to Blade Runner with the edits.
Oh god.
Because there was one ending that was really dark, then there was one ending that was kind of melancholic, and then there was one that was happy. But then they made it like non-chronological, a la Memento. So the ending was then at the front. It's kind of, it made no sense in the end, but I just kind of went along with it, and that was my paycheck film.
It works out.
Yeah, but I hope so. Is it? No. It's not due to festivals until September, I don't think. But yeah. So reworking stuff, editing stuff, and doing things over and over and over and over and maybe over again. And
The artist's dilemma.
Yeah, until the director says yes and the producer's happy. And when the producer and director don't agree, you just want to leave the room and cry. It's funny when the producer and directors disagree, because it's kind of, the director is there to tell the composer what to do, but then the producer steps in. It's kind of, it's really interesting, because it might be the director says something like, the melody should be played on guitar, and the producer says, no, it should be played on piano, and in the end I end up playing it on flute. It's kind of, you have to try and get the best of both. You can't win with the producer and the director, right. So it's just kind of, please don't hurt me, here's my best try.
Well, that poses a good question too, and Varyar just handed me a slip of paper with this, kind of going along with that. So when you're doing your scores, the question is, do you deliberately use certain instruments or combos to try and create certain emotions or themes, or do you just write the music and let it carry its own message?
I go to the Thomas Newman's world of instrumentation, where everything starts on piano and strings, but then individual colours might come out. So if I'm writing something romantic, I'll bring out the woodwinds. If I'm writing something kind of heroic, I'll go to the brass.
The kazoo.
Oh, definitely the kazoo. Look out for Wolverine's theme played on the kazoo. That'll be an interesting one. I was messing around the other day and I thought, would it be funny if I played a heavy metal version of the X-Men theme?
I think that would be amazing, actually.
Yeah, I'm questioning it for season 3, or just as a bonus thing on the episodes. But anyway, yeah, I tend to do piano for intimate scenes, or like close chamber strings, which is about 16 players, 3, 4, 4, 3. That's not 16, that's 14. Declan, do the maths. 14 players. I don't go soloists on strings too often because it sounds a bit too in your face, but if I have a soloist that will play it for me, then maybe. And then vocals, vocals are quite an odd one to use because if you think, you can either have like the soft but brittle kind of quiet vocals in the background of sad scenes, but then you can also have like the epic operatic kind of choir stuff, which is evolving a little bit in the Phoenix Saga stuff. But I don't like using choir as much, but because it seems to have too much of a religioso feel, and if it's not, a lot of the things I do don't follow the religioso kind of stuff. I'm using it more to kind of amp up the kind of action, so it's kind of, yeah, it's a bit odd to use, but that's another one. What was the question again about instrumentation?
Do you use certain combos or instruments to carry emotions?
That's what my final exams were like. Get one question, just talk about anything that might be to do with it.
So key, we're casual here. It's all good.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned different sets of instrumentation, but yeah, use more cowbell. That's my only tip.
I will accept that as a completely plausible answer. Cowbell tells all emotions. It's just
cowbell is the answer to everything.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I don't think I have any other questions for you at this point, Declan, but did you want to stick around? Because we've got Chris Rager is in studio waiting to pop on down and talk with RivalCon as well. Do you want to hang out with us?
Yeah, sure, I'll hang out.